but yeah, so when it comes to like, so I exist and I didn't consent to existing, right? But life for me, and I think for the majority of people, is actually a net positive. It's actually a net good. So I would say that, like, yeah, you should kind of force people into existence without their consent, because they're gonna like it. They're gonna experience pleasure from it. Um, so when it comes to things like zoos, I think there's an argument to be made that their well-being is going to be greater in a zoo than it is going to be in the wild for many animals, and it's also going to be greater, um, that zoos have animals exist that otherwise wouldn't have, and their existence is a net positive.
Hmm. Okay. And I also remember you had said that a sanctuary in a lot of ways is kind of similar to a zoo, in the sense that like there's like, can you, I guess you were saying that, can you say, I'm just paraphrasing here, of course, but basically like, can someone claim in good faith that there is no exploitation going on if the sanctuary is collecting like ticketing costs and things like that, or, you know, donations, actively encouraging donations maybe, for people to attend and to watch the animals there, basically?
Um, so I think technically, having ticket sales, um, there's an argument to be made that that it's definitely exploitation. I would just say that the exploitation may be justified because it increases the likelihood of having more funds, and things like that to increase the well-being of the animals. Um, yeah, it's like, uh, say you have a world with no suffering, um, but also no like extreme well-being, versus a world that has extreme well-being, um, but then like paper cuts exist. I would take the world where paper cuts exist. Um,
Could you say
so I
that
guess,
again?
yeah. So if imagine we have two worlds, right? And there's one world where there's no suffering at
Mm.
all. There's no suffering, but there's no like pleasure either. It's kind of just like a neutral world. Um, versus a world where there's tons of pleasure and tons of well-being, but now we've added some suffering because paper cuts exist. I would take the world where paper cuts exist. Now we've increased suffering, um, but because paper cuts exist, now there's, for whatever reason, now there's extreme amounts of pleasure. I would take the paper cut world over the non-suffering world. So adding that to the whole like ticket sales, even if ticket sales increase some amount of exploitation and therefore some suffering, um, if the added pleasure of being able to increase funding for welfare motives and things like this, um, is greater, then I think the exploitation is good.
I see.